Welcome back. Filmmaker Chris Di Staulo joins me now to discuss his short film, Somnolence. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. Am I pronouncing that right, Somnolence?
Somnolence.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, perfect, because there's an odd, occasion where I pronounce things wrong. So, can you first explain what somnolence is, the definition of somnolence?
Yeah, absolutely. Somnolence is, basically it's another word for sleeping and drowsiness. It's a state of drowsiness.
Perfect. Now, you premiered the film at the Cannes Film Festival in France. I mean, you're taking this show to an international level. Can you tell me about that experience and where the film played and sort of what the reaction of the movie was?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got to Cannes. It was incredible. Cannes, just first and foremost, is just really a wonderful experience. It's beautiful. You're meeting a ton of like-minded individuals, and it's just wonderful to be right on the French Riviera, attending such a phenomenal festival. So we screened the film at the Short Film Corner. We had a great turnout, and the feedback was really wonderful. It was certainly more than I was expecting. So it was very nice.
Did you sort of expect that the film would sort of get as much exposure as it did?
Absolutely. I think that when you work for so long on a project, we worked on this film for about 4 years.
Really?
Yeah. And
why 4 years?
Well, we spent a long time really kind of creating the world and really focusing on really trying to understand what this world was and who these characters were, and then also securing funding, things like that. Took some time, and then post-production was a long road as well. That was about a year that we spent doing a lot of visual effects. There are a lot of visual effects in this film, especially for a short. But basically, you're working so long on this project, and you only hope that it gets the exposure that it's gotten. So I was hoping, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Now, you mentioned it a little bit. I mean, with science fiction, it's such an ambitious genre, and that you're not only, writing a screenplay, but you're creating a world. So can you tell me a little bit about the premise, without spoiling anything? Because I know there is a trailer online on your website, but sort of explain sort of the gist of what the screenplay is.
The film takes place in a future where humans are so evolved they no longer require sleep, except for one man who falls asleep and he begins dreaming.
So does that throw off coffee completely?
He falls asleep and he begins dreaming, and
this is your lead.
Yeah,
Nick Smith.
That's right. That's Nick Smith, and essentially he's kind of torn because he's in this world. He's not really sure what is real and what is not. So ultimately, he's left with a choice to stay in his dreams forever, or never dream again and stay in reality.
Now, I want to know a little bit about casting the film. I mean, you have an interesting lead. Nick's done a lot of television. Was it hard finding your leading man? Because, I mean, it's one of those things where casting is a big part of any film. I mean, a lot of people are just watching who's on screen and sort of don't pay attention to behind the scenes, which is very important, but, I mean, you have to find somebody to represent what you're doing on screen.
Right. Right, absolutely. Casting was, it was a fairly easy process. When I saw Nick, I put the call out there and you just kind of hope for the best, right? You're rooting to just find the best actor, and you want them all to be winners. But when Nick sent me his application, I was just so blown away by his work. And what I was particularly interested in was that although Somnolence is not a comedy, Nick is very talented in dramatic work, but also in comedic work. So I wanted to cast him based on his ability to do both and what he could bring to the table.
Was there any improv then in terms of like going off the script, or did you guys just stick directly to the screenplay? We sticked a lot to the script in terms of the dialogue, but in terms of the actions, the reactions, I'm very, the way that I work as a director is I'm very specific in making sure that my actors can play as well. So that was the process. I want to ask you a little bit about the look of the movie. It has such a sort of very glossy, shiny, sort of ambitious kind of look as a movie. Sort of when you were thinking about that, when we think about sci-fi, we do think about sort of, those Star Treks and Blade Runners and such. But what was your sort of goal and vision in creating for the look of the movie?
It's really hard to articulate, Eric. Like, basically, you work on this script. I came up with the concept and had a writer friend of mine write it for me. And when you're poring over it, especially for so long, it becomes very clear to you what you're looking for. I had several visual references that I would send to my director of photography and my production designer, but at the end of the day, it's just something that just kind of tweaks inside you that this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for.
With writing the script as well, you mentioned that you wrote the screenplay with somebody. Can you talk a little bit about sort of maybe collaborating in terms of that process and how that works? Because I mean, obviously, as an individual, you're directing your own piece, but working on a script, it's there are multiple people usually, or for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. Collaborating is such a huge part of it. It's as a director, you need to know how to lead everyone, and working on this project was phenomenal because I made sure that I worked with a lot of people that I really admired in terms of their creative work, and it all just kind of comes together. But you just have to know how to work with people. That's what it's about, right? It's teamwork.
How does this compare to some of your other work in terms of previous shorts and commercials and what have you?
Yeah, I think that this is certainly my most ambitious project to date. It's very visual effects heavy. It's very advanced in terms of the concept and the look. So I think so far this is a pretty big one for me.
Where can people find more of your work in terms of your website and what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is www.chrisdistaulo.com, which is my name.
Right.
And all of my work is up on there.
I also wanted to ask you, I mean, we talked a little bit about sci-fi. How do you feel about the genre in this day and age? I mean, we're getting a lot of science fiction. Star Wars is coming back, obviously. Do you think that it's a genre that sort of allows itself to be, an interesting place for stories to be told, or is it sort of more of a special effects sort of driven genre?
My one qualm with science fiction has always been that the world is so out of this world that it's just too hard for us as audience members to relate to. Basically, this film to me isn't really a sci-fi film, but it's essentially a drama that just takes place in the future.
Do you think practical effects are still, valid in science fiction now? Do you think that it still works?
Absolutely. It's becoming a lost art as well. But I think it's just a lovely thing that I think we should hold on to.
Again, amazing that this movie played at the Cannes Film Festival. What are you going to do next with the film? I mean, it just seems like you just, went to the top already.
Thanks so much.
There's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see. We've submitted to a bunch of different festivals. We're continuing to do press for it. So we're just kind of waiting to find out. At the end of the summer, we hear back from quite a few. But the other day, I found out we got into the film market at the Palm Springs International Film Festival.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there any sort of thought maybe down the road to adapt it into a feature-length film or any of your other works into feature-length movies?
Absolutely. This film we're developing into a feature film right now, the Somnolence from the short. Basically, it's it just needs to be a feature.
And would you sort of expand on the world and the characters and sort of create more, or would you sort of keep it sort of intimate as you have it like the short?
We're going to dig deeper into the script. There's a lot of story that's there in the short, that's present in the short, that we really want to elaborate on.
That is incredible. I mean, like, it's just incredible to have a filmmaker on this show that has, gone to the Cannes Film Festival, that has had a movie that is so ambitious and big and sort of grand in its terms and science fiction, and I can't thank you enough for being on the show.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you very
so
much,
Chris.